Well, what's going on, YouTube? Today I'm answering the hardest question that you've ever asked me in my whole YouTube career, or possibly even just the hardest question I've ever been asked to solve in my whole life, regardless. You guys asked for a fully universal solo build that could be transferred from a tank to a healer to a mag to a Stam DPS, all just by swapping the sets out with the person. So you take the armor off, you throw it on somebody else, bada bing, bada boom, and now you could do something completely different. I had toiled many a night thinking about how this would be possible. I consulted many experts on what could be possibly done to accomplish such a thing. And I finally think that I have actually completed something in reference to what you guys had asked for. I did set a couple ground rules. So rule number one is that you're allowed to, obviously, your characters will all have different attribute points, so that your attribute points will not be universal. Your Mundus Stone, obviously, will also not be universal. And while the sets will all be the same, I am changing the weapons for each individual character. Similar to those other YouTube videos where people were like, I can make a better Wendy's cheeseburger. In the same vein to that, yes, there are better ways that you could do it if you were specializing in one class or one build or one, whatever. So just know that obviously this is tailor-made to what specifically my challenge was. So obviously when we get into the specifics, you'll be able to see kind of a little bit how you could tweak it. But the stats overall were really good. You could physically take this set from a healer to a tank to a DPS. So I'm actually pretty proud of this challenge because this was the hardest bit of theory crafting that I've ever had to do. And also keep in mind too, I tried to use sets that were all easily attainable, craftable sets from easy places, scryable things, because then you don't have to really do any hard solo content, because this was suggested by someone who really struggles to find people to do those vet dungeons and things with. So this doesn't require anything super difficult. The hardest thing it will require is scrying and high isle. So without further ado, let's start to jump on into it. The results of the most impossible question that I've ever been asked. What has possibly been slapped on this character? And you're about to find out and see what it looks like on a Templar DPS. That could also be converted into a healer. So we have a Heartland Conqueror's Inferno Staff, which the benefit of using this set is it increases the effectiveness of your weapon trait by 100%, and it gives weapon and spell, mag, and stam, which is really nice for pretty much every class across the board, as 2/3 of all classes will pretty much always use mag and stam. Even tanks, for those of you who don't know, you generally bar swap so that you can then block with magicka if you're using an ice staff, and then stamina if you're using a sword and shield. So it's really nice to have both. Also, most people with the hybridization also have usually mag and stam ability, so really nice to have that little hybridization. But that weapon enchant, or the actual trait, I should say, excuse me, is really nice because for this, because we are again swapping out weapons, that was part of the allowment for me to do is that, for example, I made this Nernhold, but when you see this on the tank later, you'll notice that I've gone with defending. So I get the extra bonus, but the bonus is going to be better based on what actual class it's going to be going on. So here we got a damage increase, and then the healing staff, for example, which I won't show you because it's very similar to this. Basically increased healing effectiveness. Now there's other things you could obviously go with too. You could do like crit chance, things like that. You could put a crit thing on here. It just depends on what you want. But Heartland Conqueror, set numero uno. Set numero dos, we have Swarm Mother with a multi-effect enchant, which means we're going to be getting a ton of mag, health, and stam, Divine's Mundus, and that is going to be giving us a nice little juice of maximum stamina and maximum magicka for just a one-piece set. Now, here's what really gets crazy, and the theory crafting begins, because the whole reason that this is universal is because not only have we made it universal with the weapon enchant by having different enchants tailored to different classes, we've gone with a set that allows for 2 Mundus Stones, which means that when you take this armor off one class and you put it on another, you can have 2 Mundus Stones, which is basically almost a secondary 5-piece set buff, for another character. But the nice thing is that it's different. For our tank, for example, we went with health and then resist. But for this class, we went for magicka and then we went with spell damage. So you get that second Mundus, you basically get 2 extra, or you get an extra Mundus, which gives you 2 really nice, big bonuses, especially because these are all Divine's pieces on here. Now I've gone with light and heavy as the mixture just because I like heavy pieces of chest and legs because they have added armor. But again, it doesn't really matter a whole lot. Just I thought most people would use this for PvE. Although after looking at the stats, which you'll get to see here in a bit, this is very viable for PvP too. So going right on down, I only made it blue, but I went with the mag recovery and then triune for all of the the actual enchants and then the actual trait, and then we have the Oaken Soul Ring, which gives us a lot of things. So that's kind of the only way that I was able to make this effective, because you'll see the stats right here on this bad boy are really pretty decent for not specializing or having any actual sets that are actually geared towards him. Having 4466 spell damage is pretty high, and 36k max mag with 27k health and 22k stam really is nothing to scoff at if you wanted to take that into like a PvP scenario. This guy could actually do really well in like a Battlegrounds or Cyrodiil, especially because Templars especially have the ability to kind of heal themselves over time, and when they jab and whatnot, and have that added recovery. So obviously the attributes are on mag. If this is a Stam character, we would switch this all over to stamina, and then we would be able to switch out the mag Mundus Stone for the Stam Mundus Stone, and then the spell damage for the weapon damage. You can also get creative with it. There's nothing to say too that you can't have like the steed. You can't give yourself a little more resistance if you want it on this build. I mean, it really depends on what you're going to do with it. But again, that's the type of variability that this build gives you. You can take this on one character, build it one way, take the exact same set, switch out the weapons, and then the Mundus and the attributes, have a totally different outcome, which I think is what makes this build so viable, for actually being used. Because the reason that I think you guys suggested this to me is you guys have a lot of characters that are just naked, and you want to be able to do like content with them. Now obviously it can be pretty annoying to swap out a set between all your characters, but there's nothing that says you have to, I'm obviously swapping this between my characters because that was part of the challenge that you guys gave me. But if you know that it's going to be, a healer, you can make it all light pieces. You don't have to, and then you can make it all mag enchants to get a lot more magicka. You don't have to do what I did, which is make it as universal as possible. You can make it as tailor-made to what you want, and then kind of go from there. So that was just a constraint that I have, but you guys also won't have. So don't worry about that. It's also, by the way, a great set if you wanted to make this with training gear, because as you level up, the Mundus Stone effects will also, as you level up, so say you're wearing level 10 gear and you get to 12, 14, 15, 16, 17, your set will get worse. However, your Mundus Stone effects will stay the same, and those divine pieces that you're wearing will continue to amplify it. And then you hit Heartland, which will double the enchant on your weapon, so then you can slap on a training piece so you get double the training. So that's another really good set if you're looking at building training gear. This is actually my go-to training set, so you guys just keep that in mind. But now let's switch over to the tank. Haha, I've jumped into the midpoint of the video because I feel very guilty sometimes about having long intros. So, just as a reminder for you guys to leave a comment in the comments below to be entered into the giveaway. I've actually made a lot of ad revenue this month, and I'm going to be giving it back to at least 2 of you, potentially more, but at least 2 people will be able to get ESO Plus for free or get gift cards for whatever else they would likely purchase it with. Hopefully not anything illegal. But, hey, we don't judge around here. So leave a comment, share the video, like the video. Question of the day is do you like this build? What are your thoughts on it? It took a lot of brain power for me to accomplish something like this, so let me know in the comments below. But now let's jump over to the tank. And for those of you who may have doubted that the tank would have crazy bad stats, well, bam! Take a look at this bad mamma jamma. 41k health, 26k mag, 26k stam. Decent enough weapon damage. You could probably do your own little bit of DPS if you really wanted to, but that resist is also not too bad either. Something that's important to consider too is that this is a completely non-procced character, which means that it is completely not utilizing anything that's proccing it to give it higher stats right now. I'm not hitting a dummy. I'm not in Cyrodiil. Anything that would make a set or your character's buffs be higher is not currently on this bad boy. So everything you're seeing right now is completely non-procced. And this is also not golded out, which if you really wanted to, you could. But this is the actual tank setup. Obviously, the skills, the weapons, the stuff that you run is going to be completely dependent on you. I ran a defending sword with a divine shield to get that extra bit of oomph, on my bad boy. But again, it's really going to kind of depend on what you want. Obviously, you're going to want a wide array of weapons if this is going to be a set that you're going to use. But there is one other thing that I wanted to talk to you guys about too that I think could also work really well. And so my thoughts are, kind of the conclusion to, this kind of video and stuff that you've been watching. But my thoughts are really you could use this on the same character as well to have a healer, a tank, and a DPS without even having to switch anything except your armory actual setup. And then, because now Munduses are being linked in the newest updates, all you have to do is just switch builds, and you could have a tank, healer, and a DPS, all the same character, utilizing the exact same sets, only swapping out the weapons, which would be done through the armory system. Your attributes would be swapped through the armory system, and so on and so forth. So I really wanted to kind of point that out too, because my original thought going into this video was, oh, you could build this for multiple characters. But at the end of the day too, because in thinking like kind of throughout the video and recording and whatnot, a lot of you guys only have one or two characters, so the ability for you guys to use the same character for multiple things I think is pretty empowering. Now, obviously, some quick disclaimers. This is probably not going to be something that's going to be used for like end game content. You probably could still do most veteran content with this, like veteran dungeons, obviously, especially base game ones and ones that don't have crazy modes. But you will also have to keep in mind too that Oaken Soul is like you can't bar swap. Some mechanics in some dungeons and trials require you to bar swap, so just keep that in mind, obviously too. But other than that, it's going to kind of wrap up my thoughts on this build. Let me know what you guys think. This was the hardest question you guys have ever asked me, so feel free to ask some crazy other questions and suggestions in the comments below. But I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.
You better remember to like and subscribe to Jake Clips. Or you should. I might have to pluck your eyes if you don't. Or, better yet, I'll skip rope with your entrails. Do it now. Subscribe. Ta-ta. Off with you.